Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Cainer.
My father's 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 father before him came from Russia, maybe Poland, maybe Lvov or Lublin. My mother's 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 mother before her from Vilna, Lithuania, near the Polish border. I come from them, they came from there, to another country, on a journey to God knows where. I'm the fourth generation, since my not so distant relations left the villages and ghettos for another land. The Star of David, the menorah, the Talmud and the Torah. Behold the diaspora from the motherland. On the trains and the boats, there they are, packed together like roll mop herrings in a jar. They arrive in immigration, they can hardly spell their names. After decontamination, they are never quite the same. They are greens now, they are browns now, they are silvers, they are golds. They are waking, they are waiting for their stories to unfold. I come from them, they came from there, to another country, on a journey to God knows where. We live and learn, we laugh and cry. One day we're born, one day we die. We come from here, we go to there, and we're all on a journey. We're all on a journey to God knows where. Aren't we all on a journey to God knows where? We're all on a journey to God knows where, and we don't know where we're going, we don't know why we're going there, we don't know what's going to happen when we get there, we don't know where we are at the moment, we don't know why we don't know where we are at the moment, we don't know really what we're doing at the moment most of the time, taking a guess at it, but we do sort of know where we've been. So tonight I'm going to tell you some stories about where I've been, and maybe you'll recognise in these stories somewhere you've been too. I noted tonight in the service, these words I've heard 100,000 times before, but all about our ancestors. It's all the ancestors this and the ancestors that. So I suppose I'm going to start with some stories about ancestors, but they're not quite so far back. They are really people that made that journey, literally as well as metaphorically, and they came. We're all probably, I'm assuming that some of us here, most of us here might be from Ashkenazi, though somebody said something lovely, that the tune that I played earlier was a kind of combination between Sephardi and Ashkenazi, a little bit Ladino and what have you in the service. But that's largely where my people came from, as I described there. And I'm going to tell you a story. The first story that I'm going to tell you, actually, I haven't done this one for a while, but it was one of those things where I thought, well, what should we put? And Ross said, put a set list so we can put it in the programme. So I put it in the programme, and now I'm committed to it because it's written there. So this is two guys that made this story, and they were tailors, and it's called, unsurprisingly, A Tale of Two Tailors. And there is some Yiddish in this, so I don't know how many of you here are familiar with Yiddish. Oh, wonderful, one Yiddish expert. Nor me. But I do know, here's one we can try just to make sure we've got the idea. When I say, Oi, Gavalt, it means... Oi, Gavalt is what it means. Usually I just think that if you want to translate it, the most efficient way is to just repeat it with as much enthusiasm as you possibly can. So, Oi, Gavalt, and Oi, Vesmir. That's about all you need to know. Morris Green was fast and mean with a sewing machine. There was no one better. He and his mate, Monty, were the greatest. Tailors they were, they'd suit you, sir, in silk or wool or leather. They were a nice little double act. The funny man, the straight man, the quiet man, the great man. They were a cut above the rest. Maury and Monty were the best. Now let me explain, in the garment game, you've got to have a brain for the business. Well, Monty, he had that, but it was Maury who had the knack. Like a knife through butter, he could cut a bit of schmadder, quicker and slicker than a moil at a bris does. They were a nice little double act, the yang and the yin, the bet and the din. They were well and truly blessed. Maury and Monty were the best. They met on the boat from Hamburg, and on it they made a vow. In a mixture of Russian and Polish and Yiddish, they stood like Leonardo DiCaprio did ish on the Titanic bow. We're gonna be kings of the world, they say. We're gonna be kings of the world, aren't they? Well, all they had on that boat was a crumpled up note in the pocket of their coat. They could not even read, and on it was their address, the address of an uncle or cousin of theirs who'd resettled from the shtetl, now in Manchester or Leeds. So in a poor part of town, in a sweatshop underground, they dream of the sound of cash registers. Maury and Monty, like the brothers Delfonsi, Cuban cigars, Rolls-Royce cars, their names above the doors of community centres. They were a nice little double act, like Spencer and Marx. The sum of their parts was more than you would ever guess. Maury and Monty were the best. They beg and they steal and they borrow. They're wily, they're clever, they're strong. in a mixture of Russian and Polish and Yiddish. They take on the orders, their thinking is biggish. They're singing their company song, and it goes, we're gonna be kings of the world in their day. We're gonna be kings of the world one day. One night while Maury lay asleep in his bed, a shaft of light came through the window, and a voice in his head, in a mixture of Russian, and it's the light of the Almighty, deciding when it wants to shine, nothing to do with me. One night while Laurie was sleeping a bit, a shaft of light came through the window, and a voice in his head, in a mixture of Russian and Polish and Yiddish, and some Hebrew that he recognized from when he made Kiddush, said, I am the God of your father's kid. I delivered you from Egypt, I did. And to Adam and Eve I sent a snake, kid. So they realized that they were naked. And for you I did this favor, so that people should always need a tailor. And tonight I plant in you a seed, a simple yet brilliant idea. And woe betide you, I guarantee, if you forget it was me that put it here. And sure enough, the very next day, Maury woke up and shouted, Eureka, hooray! Eureka, I've got it, the pattern and the stitch. Eureka, I've got it, I'm gonna be rich. This next section is in ragtime. It's about tailors, and it's in ragtime. And that's a joke. I'm going to try that again. It's about tailors, and it's in ragtime. He says the buttons on the jacket of the coat can spoil the line, and the lady or the gentleman might not really like that all the time. If I can make a long extended seam or flap, the buttons can be hidden underneath the overlap. How come nobody's ever thought of that? That is a great idea. That is a great idea. I better file a patent right away. That is a great idea. I feel like a genius today. If I can make a long extended seam or flap, the buttons can be hidden underneath the overlap. I really am a very clever chap. That is a great idea. Well, Monty, the other one, he was very jealous. After all, he was supposed to have the brains. He started fiddling about with the tassels on his talons. That's the pressure. And you could see the bulging of his temple veins. These are his temple veins. I thought I'd better show you. And these are the other temple veins that he doesn't go to. He says that ain't a great idea. You leave the thinking to me. Everybody knows round here your brain is the size of a pea. You get back to the treadle of your Singer Deluxe. Leave me to the business of making the bucks. You don't want us looking like a couple of schmucks. That ain't a great idea. Now, after me. Oi, Gavolt. Oi, Weesmeer. We will never really know what happened here. But before you could say, I'll have a bagel mit schmear, Monty stole Morris's idea. And from it he made a killing. And Maury was left with chopped egg on his face. And he never got a shekel or a shilling. He said, Monty, you have conned me. How could you stitch me up like this? He said, Maury, I'm very sorry, but it's a cutthroat business this is. So these two men never spoke again. The best of friendship had been broken, and Maury's career stopped in a Bradford tailoring shop. But Monty, he built a factory, never mentioning the idea that Maury said he stolen. That was the end of the double act. Friends now strangers, everything changes, like the dinosaurs, like King Canute. Maury and Monty followed suit. Hoi gavolt, hoi they smear. For every moment of joy there's a corresponding tear. Their lives like ours, full of jealousy and fear. Maury went to his grave bearing a grudge, and as for Monty, God will be his judge. Well, Maury went on to begat Asney, and Asney begat Ruth, begat me. This mixture of Russian and Polish and Yiddish, their lives and their hopes and their dreams don't finish. They live on in you and in me. When I look in the mirror I see a little bit of Maury and Monty. They were the kings of their world in their day. They were the kings of the world, weren't they? Kings of the world, Maury and Monty. And there is Maury. That's Maury's screen. That's my great-grandfather. And this is Monty, Montague Burton. Now, I don't know if Burton's tailoring shops ever got as far as Chicago. I think there was certainly one branch in New York eventually, but he did build a factory. In fact, he sort of devised kind of mass production of made-to-measure suits. You could say he was the Henry Ford of tailoring, without the anti-Semitism. And he had chains of shops like this where you go in and you'd be made to measure, and this is Burton's shop. There was one on every high street. And, well, I would say just after the Second World War, 45% of men in Britain wore a Burton suit, and it was known as the Full Monty. Suit yourselves. So there was a little bit about me. I suppose I was brought up. My parents were what you probably call modern Orthodox Jews. Anyway, we followed the rules and the regulations fairly religiously, you might say, which meant that we made we made kiddush on a Friday night. We went to shul on Shabbos. Shabbos morning was the big thing, and we wouldn't work. We would not drive. We would not carry money. Wouldn't operate machinery. We wouldn't drive. I said we wouldn't drive. We wouldn't drive, apart from to go to shul, of course, where we'd park 2 or 3 streets away and then walk the last little bit to make it look like we'd walked all the way. And of course, we were just children in the back of the car, and we'd be sitting in the back of the car, and then we might see the rabbi walking along, and of course we didn't want him to recognize us, so we would duck. Now my father, who was driving the car, he would also duck. And this, my mother left my mother just sitting there in a driverless car, looking bemused, if not ashamed. But this was because she thought we should have a better car. So I got as far as my bar mitzvah, and then really I didn't have very much to do with any of it until much later in my life. Now, I'll get to that bit a little bit later in this, in this 5-hour show. So, but right now, I want to just go back to my grandparents, and this is a story that came to me in a dream. In a dream. And in the dream, it was my old Auntie Ray, Auntie Rachel Ross. There she was, vagging the finger. Vag, 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 let this vag. She says, you have been writing the songs about everybody else in the family. Why will you not write a song and sing a song about me and your grandfather? I said, you're my grandfather? Yes, me and your grandfather. Grandfather. This is one of the problems of having a headset mic, incidentally. Where's my techie people? Just as a point, when you're trying to do that, grandfather, when you pull away from the mic, it will get quieter. But you can't pull away from the mic because it's wrapped round your neck. Grandfather. Here is a story about Grandfather Isaac. Grandfather Isaac and my Aunt Ray. She wasn't an aunt, really. She was a friend of the family. On Friday nights and Seder nights, she was always there, sitting next to Isaac whilst Isaac said the prayers. Grandfather Isaac, he loved his wife Sophie. Grandmother Sophie, she loved him too. He wasn't short of affection, but he was prone to depression. When that descended, Sophie would say, why don't we think about inviting round Ray? And as soon as he saw her, the dark clouds would lift, and the three of them would laugh about that and about this. If Sophie knew, she didn't say, and neither did Isaac or Ray. But under the table, their hands touch. It's all that they're able to do. And it isn't so much, but a power that's so hard to resist. Arcs across their fingertips, wound up like coiled springs are they. Grandfather Isaac and my Aunt Ray. Sophie and Rachel are primary school teachers to the immigrant children down Chapeltown Way. And though they share their secrets like best friends do, there was this one subject that was always taboo. Things were not open and free like today. Emotions were stifled and hidden away. Grandfather Isaac had a strict moral code, and though they may have been tempted to go down that road, they favored the status quo, and they stayed on the straight and narrow. But under the table, he strokes her knee It's all that they're able to do when no one can see. And that was as far as it went. They knew how much more it meant. Their hearts never came out to play. Grandfather Isaac and my Aunt Ray. Rachel grew older, but she never married. No man she encountered could take Isaac's place. She kept a tiny picture of him in a locket of silver. And many years later, on the day that he died, she clutched on that locket and she cried, imagining everything for better or for worse, and remembering the warmth of his hand holding hers. Under the table, Isaac and Ray speak with their fingers what their mouths cannot say. Somewhere in a parallel land, Isaac and Rachel are publicly holding hands, and that's where we'll find them today. Grandfather Isaac and my Aunt Ray. Grandfather Isaac and my Aunt Ray. And there they are, on a beach somewhere, a long, long way from here, a long, long time ago. And it was amazing to find that picture, actually, because I'd heard of the story, and there they are. And I'll let you work out which one's which. I'll give you a clue, though. Isaac's the one in the middle. So I'm a bit concerned. Well, I'll do this one. It takes place a little bit later when I'm. My grandpa Isaac was he was really the frummer. He was a doctor actually, and they lived in the sort of northern English city of Bradford. That's where he had his practice after he graduated, and so he had his surgery in Bradford. Now, obviously, I don't expect you to know where Bradford is. But actually, so I always have to explain. It's about 200 miles north of London, near to Leeds or Manchester, that sort of area. But believe it or not, I have to explain when I'm in the UK. I also my parents were born there, but as soon as they could, and as quickly as they could, they got away and they went to live down south in London, where I was born. And my grandfather and my grandmother, Sophie and Isaac, they used to come and visit when we were little. My grandpa, he loved all the rules and the regulations of, it was kind of almost, it was kind of obsessive compulsive, you might almost say. And if you think about it, there's something about spectrumy about the whole practice. But that was for 9 months of the year, and for the other 3 months of the year during the summer, he took all of that in exactly the same methodology, and he applied it to cricket. And he was an avid cricket fan, and then all those rules were out under the window, and he would do anything to go to a cricket match. And they came to London, and his team, Yorkshire, were playing Surrey, the local team, at a ground called the Kennington Oval, the Oval Cricket Ground. And he said to me and my two brothers, would you like to come to the cricket with me? And they said, no, thank you, Grandpa. And I said, oh, yes, please, Grandpa, thinking this is going to be exciting. And off I went to the cricket match with my grandpa. Now, I don't expect you to know very much about cricket, so I've got a diagram here. Hang on a minute. It's coming up. There it is. Oh, no, sorry, that's not it. That's that's something else. That's what you have, right, for your national pastime. And here is what we have. I'm sure you can't see the detail. There's no way. I could spend all night on this. But they have all sorts of exciting names to things, anyway, I won't go into all of it here, but here we go. The Kennington Oval Cricket Ground, my grandpa and me. My grandfather took me to Kennington Oval when I was about 6 years old, and he tried to explain all the rules of the game, and he gave me a scorecard to hold. But all I could see was some men in white jumpers, occasionally moving and running and stuff, and a building on which they displayed random numbers which I couldn't possibly hope to add up. My grandfather gave me some tea from his flask and unwrapped for me 2 sugar lumps. He said, there is the batsman, there is the bowler, and those are the bails and the stumps. And those are the covers, and that is the boundary. There's silly mid-on and there's silly mid-off. And I, of course, thought that was so silly sounding and repeated it until he said, that's enough. Some things you remember, some things you forget, but this I recall vividly. When we went to the Kennington Oval, my grandpa and me. We sat there in silence for what seemed like a lifetime, as the sky turned from white to dark grey. And then he held his newspaper over his head, and the rain interrupted play. We stood in a shelter, and every 2 minutes I'd ask him, Grandpa, is the rain going to stop? And he'd look at the sky and he'd scrunch up his eye and say, maybe it will, but then again maybe not. We were soaked to the skin and I was getting hungry, so we went off to try and find a phone. But there was a long line and my grandpa grew grumpy. All he wanted to do was go home. So we waited for Grandma to pick us up in the car, but she was a terrible driver and she was always getting lost. So we stood by the road in the rain for an hour, though I was sure that was her in each car that drove past. And eventually she arrived, and that old car was warm and dry inside, and they wrapped me in a blanket and I fell asleep between Grandma and Grandpa on the front bench seat. Time has moved on and Grandpa has gone, but I still have this memory. When we went to the Kennington Oval, my grandpa and me. Grandpa was a doctor in 5 Lane Ends, Bradford, and his surgery was in the house at the back. And despite his religiousness, he'd do his rounds in the car on Yom Tov and Shabbat. Grandma and Grandpa kept a kosher household, 2 sets of cutlery, 2 sets of plates, 1 for the milk-ick and 1 for the flesh-ick. God help them if they got mixed up by mistake. Before their son David got married, they took this practice to their future daughter-in-law, who, though she was Jewish, her family were Jewish. They were Reformed Jewish, and to them that was almost not Jewish at all. If you must know the truth, said my grandma to Ruth, on the night of your wedding there's a thing you must do, and it will only take you a couple of minutes. Then, God willing, you'll give us a grandchild or 2. But this is all just hearsay. As for me, I only remember the day when my grandparents came down to London to stay, and Yorkshire were playing against Surrey away. And on that visit, we watched the cricket, and he held my hand so tightly. When we went to the Kennington Oval, my grandpa and me. Then my parents divorced, and we children, of course, we had little further contact. And my father's affair with a non-Jewish woman, they weren't prepared to accept that. Though the children she then bore him were their grandchildren too, despite the requests for their blessing. The letters unopened, the law had been broken. No forgiving and no forgetting. But that was the old world, this is the new. Everything changes, and how. And my grandpa's collection of cricket and prayer books, they're not much use to him now. If Grandpa had lived to see all this and more, I think we can imagine what he might have thought. The bright-coloured tracksuits, the pink and the white ball. He'd say that's just not cricket at all. I've been to their graves in Netanya, and as I light the yachtside candles for them, I asked them if they remember being caught in the rain near the Vauxhall End. And now I've a grandson myself. When he is old enough, we will go to the Kennington Oval, my grandson and me. There's Grandma Sophie, Grandpa Isaac, and a little bit later in time. That doesn't really help you identify from the previous photograph, but although you can tell, what is absolutely sure is that picture is definitely not taken in Bradford because the sun is shining. And it was actually, I think that's taken actually in Netanya. They just moved to, they just made Aliyah. And that there is little me. And I know I haven't changed a bit, but at least not inside. And here is is Little Truman, of course. Anyway, I couldn't resist throwing that in. Sorry about it. Anyway, bit too much schmaltz. Now, I'm a bit aware that we started a little bit late, and I don't want to keep you all night and all that sort of thing, so I'm just going to work out where we are with the time. Is everybody okay out there? Yeah, lovely. I've got... What does it say in the programme? What's next? Tip the Lady. Oh, yeah, we'll do Tip the Lady. Well, this is a kind of companion song to this. It's another one sort of set in childhood, a little bit, maybe a couple of years later, and it's another family outing to a place of entertainment, an entertainment emporium. But this is a bit more of a, I don't know, it's a little bit more adult-themed. There's a little bit of a, sexual awakening. And it takes place here. It's not quite what you think, by the way. Here at a place called Battersea Fun Fair. It's the late 1960s, it's a family outing to Battersea Pleasure Gardens. It's gotta be winter, it's probably late afternoon, 'cause it's dark, there's a slither of a moon. There's 100,000 multicoloured carnival lights, though my memory of it seems to be in just black and white. There's the rocking and the rolling of the giant roller coaster at Battersea Pleasure Gardens. If I was a little bit older, I'd be on it like a flash, that's for sure. But you've got to be 12 or more. So we settle for the waltzes and the bumper car rides that my dad lets me drive whilst he covers his eyes. Though it's no longer there, I can still hear the sound of thunder, clap Newman starting, and all the fun of the fair at Battersea Pleasure Gardens. There are side stalls and stages and small shooting ranges at Battersea Pleasure Gardens. With a little bit of luck, you can hook a plastic duck and win a prize. The kinds of things no one actually buys. An inflatable banana, a blue elephant, a flag, a lonely looking goldfish in a transparent bag. Just by the roller coaster, a crowd of people gather at Battersea Pleasure Gardens. They're watching and they're waiting, but for what I'm not able to tell. There's a cheer and the sound of a bell. There's the unmistakable smell of cigarettes and beer, and some language that this little Jewish boy shouldn't hear. I push my way to the front of the crowd, kicking aside the empty burger cartons, with my mouth open wide at Battersea Pleasure Gardens. Now let me describe the scene. It's 7 balls for a shilling if you want to try. And out of the roller coaster juts, instead of a row of coconuts, a woman on a bed. Yes, you heard me right. Above the bed, on the wall, there's a target, and if somebody hits the bullseye, the bed tips up, the woman falls out, but she ain't coconut shy. It's a real live lady in a polka dot bikini, standing right in front of me. She wiggles and she shimmers and she shakes till my pupils are the size of Pontefract cakes. She takes a catwalk turn, she tilts her head, and in less than 7 seconds she's back in the bed. Tip the lady, tip the lady. That's what the sign said. Tip the lady, tip the lady, tip the lady out of bed. Well, I stood there for ages, watching over and over at Battersea Pleasure Gardens, with my dad right beside me, doing exactly the same, till my mum came and dragged us away. Then still carrying my goldfish, I listened to them row, trying to make some sense of the shame I felt now. Through the back of the car window I watched the flashing letters of Battersea Pleasure Gardens, getting smaller and smaller, like a television dot into the rain. We won't be going there again. But now every time I hear a ringing bell sound, I see a girl in a bikini. Or is it the other way round? I just went there to play, but this risque, raided scene got thrown into the bargain. But it made me the man I am today. Battersea Pleasure Gardens. A couple of years later, they closed the roller coaster at Battersea Pleasure Gardens. There was a terrible crash, and the fair was no longer fun at all. Now there's just a plaque on the wall where the Tip the Lady Out of Bed stall used to be. And there's the shadow of a 9-year-old me. The lady in the bikini now lives in a retirement home. And 9-year-olds today have hardcore porn on their phone. Those days are gone, but the same old things go on ad nauseatum, and so does my song at Battersea Pleasure Gardens. Tip the lady, still going round in my head. Tip the lady, tip the lady, tip the lady out of bed. I did get to this point in my life where I was really starting to look at who I was and what I was and why I do what I do and think what I think and feel what I feel. In short, what's wrong with me? And I realized that what was wrong with me is that I'm Jewish. And I came to this conclusion with the help of the only non-Jewish therapist in the world. It turned out on our first session, I didn't know this, that he specialised in lapsed Jews, and he said to me, "How can you? We can't look at who you are without looking at where you come from, because it informs everything." So that is really this journey, because I've been in music one way in form or another, and scratched a living one way or another out of music. But I'd never really considered writing stuff with a Jewish flavour before, as a career move. So that's what happened from that moment. And anyway, and here I am now. I had another dream. And in the dream, there was an old rabbi wagging his finger like this. Wag, wag, wag. Just like, it was the same voice as Auntie Ray. It's amazing, isn't it? Wag, wag, wag. Says, you should write some Jewish music. I said, Jewish music? What do you mean by Jewish music? Do you mean liturgical music? Do you mean klezmer music? Do you mean Christmas carols? He said, no, Jewish music. And he disappeared off into the distance, back into the smoke and the clouds and everything. The old rabbi with the hat and the pays, and there he was, and off he went. And that's what I started doing. I started writing songs with the Jewish music about my family, and I became this thing. And I've been sort of touring the world a little bit, and it's taken me all over the world.
And it's brought me here today, thanks to the old rabbi. That's why I'm here, that's why you're here. And the rabbi, well, who can say who sent him? But you could say it's a little bit of a calling. And what I'm going to do now, though, is I am going to divert from... I was going to do a piece about anti-Semitism here, but I'm not going to do that because we will run out of time. I'm going to do this one, if I can find it. Yes. So, oh, I know. I'll just try this because this happens to be here. And this one is called Mr. Cohen Does the Housework. Mr. Cohen does the housework. But I have to set this up slightly because you say do the vacuuming. We say do the hoovering. You know, it's a little, I don't know, but it's like biro became ballpoint pen. You know, in the UK, certainly, a hoover is synonymous with vacuuming, okay? So this is Mr. Cohen does it's here. I wasn't going to do it, but I am now. Okay, here we go. They say there is a secret chord that David pulled back and forward, but I can't open this Phoenician blind Louvre. I've lost the plot, I've spilled the beans, I've dropped my box of broken dreams on the kitchen floor, and now I'll have to hoover. Where's the hoover? Where's the hoover? Where's the hoover? Where's the... Actually, I've got another one. This is for Yom Kippur, right? This is Mr. Cohen Goes to the Supermarket. Who'll buy butter? And who'll buy cheese? And who'll buy bagels? And who'll buy frozen peas? And what's this unexpected item in the bagging area? Moving swiftly on, I lost my mum earlier in the year, and I have been dealing with that. And I'm going to, the one after this, I'm going to be singing a little bit more about her and my family again. But I thought I'd do this because this is my sort of favourite song of mine at the moment. And it's called Mother's House. And here it is. Clearing out my mother's house, I'm opening every cupboard and drawer. These were her possessions, her clothes, her gems, her medicines, and her shoes galore. All these bits and pieces were choices she made. Everything she bought and thought and thought they were her story. They meant the world to her. 89 years she was here, or there or thereabouts. This is what I'm thinking as I'm clearing out my mother's house. Clearing out my mother's house,
I'm looking at the people in this picture. All these familiar faces from different times and different places. She kept them with her. A fat man on a deck chair, dressed in a three-piece woolen suit, on the beach in Bridlington or Scarborough, tells a story that means the world to her. 89 years, blood, sweat and tears, fears and hopes and doubts. This is what I'm feeling as I'm clearing out my mother's house. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way, like all the yesterdays that came before. If we could have all our yesterdays once more, would we do it any better? Would we be any the wiser? Would we cry any less or any more? Clearing out my mother's house, no one still wants this kind of furniture. We're gonna have to pay someone to take it all away, much like we did with her. The soup's no longer bubbling on the stove all day. There's just the echo of the folk that used to gather. End of story. End of the world for her. 89 years and it's still not clear what it was all about. This is what I'm thinking as I'm clearing out my mother's house. This is what I'm thinking as I'm filling up the bags. How quickly we transform into the have-nots from the haves. This is what I'm thinking as I'm sweeping the floor. This is why I'm crying as I'm closing the door. Clearing out my mother's house. Do-do-do-do-do-do. This is how I'm feeling. This is how I'm grieving. Clearing out my mother's house. So my mother, Aleph Sholem, this is the picture that I was looking at actually. And there they are, a family gathered. That's actually Maurice Green, the same grandfather, the fat man on the deck chair, and the uncles and aunts before. That's my grandmother Asni, and of course all the people behind. So they've all got their stories. The people behind have got their stories. That'll be your family and your family stories, and they begat, and they begat, and they begat us, and we begat others, and here we all are. We're all on a journey to God knows where. We don't know where we're going. We don't know why we're going there, but this is what we're doing. So I've come to my last song. I'll try that again. I've come to my last song. I'll try that again. I've come to my last song. Hey. I got volts. Hey, that's right. Okay, I've come to my last song. But now some words of thanks are required. This will only take about 30 minutes.
And but the first, actually, there was a little bit of music that was playing as you were coming in, was supposed to be playing, and it was actually by this man here. His name is Irving Fields, and he, if some of you may be familiar with him, he had some hit records in the late 1950s, and he had some shtick. He had a gimmick, because everybody's got to have a gimmick, and Irving's gimmick was to take old Jewish melodies and things and give them a Latin beat, and this was his big his hit album. It's called Bagels and Bongos. Bagels and Bongos. I'm sure you're dying to hear some Bagels and Bongos, aren't you? It sounded a little bit like this. Anyway, that's quite enough of that. So this was really successful. It was a million seller, all of that. And then so of course Irving thought, I'm going to do my second, what we call the tricky second album in the business. And he said, what shall I do? What shall I call it? Have a guess what he called his second album. Any guesses? First one's called Bagels and Bongos. Second one's called... Yeah, well, all right, I'll tell you what it's called. More Bagels and Bongos. More Bagels and Bongos. Except that, as you can see, we've moved now to the early 60s, possibly the same time. Where is it? Where's that sanctuary over there is being built? Those two were having a bit of a jive in their sitting room with their sunken floor. So now it's time for his third album. What do you think he called his third album? Even More Bagels and Bongos. But no, you would be wrong, because clever Irving, it's time to diversify. And he thought, I am going to do for the Hawaiians what I've done for the Jews. And here it is. This is his third album. It's called Bikinis and Bongos. Bikinis and Bongos. And there it is. And there is Irving living the dream with his bikinis and his bongos. And that picture reminded me of something. So now this is the last piece. Anyway, I just first, a big thanks to you for being here. Big thanks for everybody that's made this happen: sponsors, cantors, clergy, backroom staff, everybody. Making the bagels and the bongos that goes on behind the scenes and has brought me here, and it's been lovely to entertain you this evening, and all of that. And I would say just stay in touch. You can find me you can look me up on Google, and you'll find me there. And don't be a stranger, is what I'm saying. And I'm touring and doing stuff, and maybe one day I can come back. Who can say? So we are blessed. Anyway, this is going to be my last piece, and it's going to involve these things. I'll show what they are so that we know what they are when we get to them. And it's going to involve a bit of singing. Yes. That's good. Okay. Because it is Shabbat Shira. Right. Here we go. Anyway, let's start. Here we go. There we go. Okay. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be featuring these star prizes. We are going to be singing about Chumash and Siddur. Yes, exciting. One lucky person will go away. Will accidentally take one of these away with them. The Chumash and the prayer books. There we go. We also, what about these? That's a fill-in. One on the head and one, excuse me, and one on the arm. There we go. There's that. We'll also be talking about some washing powder with the brand name of Daz. We should be talking about excuse me. We'll be talking about a fridge freezer. Come on, get excited. Ooh. We will be talking about some dark glasses, some shades, some Ray-Bans. We'll be talking about some Disc Bleu cigarettes. And we'll be talking about a Citroën DS. Yeah, that's rather good, isn't it? And we'll be talking about this car here that you would not know, but it's a Vauxhall Victor British car. That was our family car. How do you know it's our family car? Because the driver is ducking. We're talking about John Courage beer, and we'll be talking about these, which is a Wall's pork pie. A Wall's pork pie. Okay, that's it. Here we go with the Surbiton Washarama. Let me tell you about my childhood. Let me lie on this divan. If you sit comfortably for me, I'll tell you a story that mouldeth and maketh this man. Let's go on a journey. Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the suburban streets to a stain on my parents' sheets where my life began. Well, my mum and dad were Jewish, and we all went to the shul. But for reasons only known to them, they decided they would send their kids to the Church of England school, which incidentally several years later was turned into a synagogue, which goes to show you God has a sense of humour, unless of course you don't believe in God. Well, every Sunday morning, that's your bit. Every Sunday morning, my dad, he drove to the laundrette. My dad, in his Mark II Vauxhall Victor. You've seen the picture with the radio, but no cassette. And on the way, he'd drop us at Hebrew classes. And believe me, that's no fun. And as he pushed us into Cheder, he said, I'll see you later, I'll be back when the washing is done. But invariably he turned up late, with his clothes all dishevelled and his toupee not straight. Which reminds me of a blustery day in Bournemouth by the sea, when the wind whipped up and blew his toupee down the street. It got tossed in the air like the plastic bag in American Beauty did. And by the time that he caught up with it, it was useless as a wig. It wasn't very clever and it wasn't very big. Sticky tape wouldn't do. Should have used Elmer's. But hey, I digress. That's another story for another time. Where was I? Oh yes, let's go back to the scene of the crime. It's the Surbiton Washarama. It's 1968. And Washarama. You got your powder in a little box. While we were learning our Hebrew alphabet down at the laundrette, my father was sorting the socks when in walks a femme fatale. Such a saucy and a sassy looking gal. She cases the joint, she catches his eye, but she's about as kosher as a Wall's pork pie. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, 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 ay. As Mary Bolton leant over the Frigidaire top loader, she looked dazzling, sprinkling her daz in. But there was nothing very frigid about her. Not in that miniskirt, no sir. And as she wiggles her bum. My dear Dad's loins become as heavy as a bag of half-crown coins that he saved at the machines and he kept on the top of his dresser. With the crumpled up tissues and the old receipts, the old spice bottle and the spare hairpiece, the talisman to fill in that he got for his bar mitzvah. The dog-eared copies of Playboy and Parade that my brothers and me used to borrow every day and put back without him noticing, which he probably did, but he couldn't say a thing. But hey, I digress. Where was I? Oh yes, now Mary was a miner's daughter from the north with an impotent husband who could hardly string together a sentence and was usually under the influence of an unspecified amount of courage best. Though most of it was spilled down the front of his vest. She was a woman looking for love and affection, my dears. My poor old dad, well, he hadn't been had for a number of years. And even then, my mum would lie back and think of Jerusalem. Oy vey, oh no, we all know which way this is gonna go. Spitz-splosh, tish-tosh, mish-mosh, bish-bosh, bit of rough, bit of posh. It's all gonna come out in the wash at the service in Washarama. There's a bit of how's your father that my father'd rather no one know. Now, Mary had a friend who worked as an assistant in the florists on the same parade of shops as the Surbiton Washarama. She said, it's fine with me, I'll lend you the key. For a 10-bob note, I'll keep stum, and that's considerably cheaper than getting a room. So every Sunday morning, in the florist on the floor, amongst the lilies and carnations, they did the fornications while the tumble dryers tumbled next door. And the moon went through its cycles, as the moon is wont to do. But not for one night did she lie awake and think it all was a mistake. The baby inside her, it grew and grew. What about the husband that won the 5 blanks? How could he not see? Her portion's getting bigger and her belly getting thicker. Well, he couldn't be the trigger, could he? No, he couldn't be the trigger, could he? Would she plead immaculate conception, like her namesake Mary did prefer, in the book that the Jews don't mention? Well, it worked for that Mary. Would it work for her? Meanwhile, in our family kitchen, my mother, according to our religion, was making every kosher dish, rolling out gefilte fish, kanederlach, krepelach, anjenach, shaken back, lighting candles, saying prayers, all completely unawares. After sundown Friday night, forbade us to turn on the light. The bulb was taken from the fridge, so it wouldn't go on when you opened it. It's in the Torah. You can keep that fridge on. Keep the fridge on, but don't turn the light on. Keep the fridge on, but don't turn the light on. Oh, babe, that's the truth. All that was missing was a fiddler on our roof. Splish-splosh, tish-tosh, bish-mosh, bish-bosh, bit of rough, bit of posh. It's gonna come out in the wash. One day as she folded his pyjamas, in the pocket of the top was a handwritten letter that should have been hidden better. And this is the message my poor mum got. It said, "Dear Davy, I'm carrying your baby. When you're going to tell your wife? If you don't, I swear to God I will have to call the Jewish Chronicle and they'll print the story of your double life." Then everyone will know your dirty washing will be on show. There'll be a plague on both our houses, 'cause you couldn't keep on your trousers. It's time to tell our spouses before my waters go. And then she held the letter high, a tear welled in my poor mum's eye. And from the depths of her soul came an eruption that made Krakatoa look like the Ladies' Guild function. Or the equivalent of whatever you call those here. She says, I'll make him rue the day. I'll take his humash and his siddur. I'll sell them to the highest bidder. I'll slash and burn his yarmulkes and prayer shawls. Why did he have to wallop that wicked little trollop? Someone should chop off his matzah balls. When he gets home, I'm gonna kill him, and then I'll string him up by his tefillin. Then she held her breath and she counted to 10 as she thought for a minute or two, and then she says, this isn't such a tragedy. This could work out quite well for me, 'cause there's been someone I've been seeing called Harold for some bagels and a little tete-a-tete every Sunday morning while your dad's at the laundrette. Though the relationship is newish, she's divorced and he is Jewish, and I swear it's entirely innocent. He's my knight in shining armour, come to save me from this drama, and from the Almighty to me he has been sent. Oi, babe, what's to be done? This soap opera's gonna run and run. Swish bosh, tish tosh, bish mosh, bish bosh, bit of rough, bit of posh, it's all gonna come out in the wash at the service in Washarama. There's worked up quite a lather, though it started off as good, clean fun. Now, Harold was in freezer cells and he wore dark glasses without fail, and he spoke with a mid-Atlantic drawl, and he called my mother babe and all, and he chain-smoked Displur cigarettes, and he drove that Citroen DS. He was suave, he was smarmy, he possessed a certain charm. There was no deal he couldn't close. He could sell wood and nails to Jesus and freezers to Eskimos. She said, Harold, will you rescue me? He said, certainly, my dear. I'm starting a new deep freeze scam, and you'll be worth a few bucks when the divorce comes through. And for startup capital, that will do. And if it all goes wrong, they'll come for you, as long as you sign right here. So me and my mom and Harold and Adam, my twin, we left the family kitchen, we climbed into his Citroen, and we all escaped to the north with him. And what became of Harold, no one can really say. But he was last seen in his old car, being pursued by a patrol car, southbound on the M1 motorway. And my mother says that the lesson that she's learned from the life that she's led has been, before a girl gets married, there should be a prenup, promise that the husband should provide a washing machine.
Well, you try very hard to bring them up, and you really do your best, and a word of thanks wouldn't go amiss when they fly the nest. Well, I never thought it would come to this, when he went upon the stage, that he'd turn around and take the piss out of his dad in his old age. What he had in attitude, he seems to lack in gratitude. Very droll, much mirth, should have strangled him at birth. But oi 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 oi, that's my boy.
We live and learn, we laugh and cry. One day we're born, one day we die. We come from here, we go to there, and we're all on a journey. We're all on a journey to God knows where. Aren't we all on a journey to God knows where?
Daniel Cainer, everyone.
Bless you, thank you so much. Oh, let's do a little. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. February 20th is our next concert with Janet Sung, violin and piano. Please join us. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. DanielCainer.com.
Yeah, I know that kind of thing. Hey, thank you. Oh, bless. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, from this I make a living. Oh, thank you. I don't know. Are there? I don't know. Oh.